It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher.
I think our track record in the last 20 years, how many NFC East titles, playoff appearances, and appearances in the NFC Championship game, those are some of the metrics I look at, and I'll compare our record with almost anybody.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
It is time for Football at 4. Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped this morning. A new edition is out. You can get it Mondays and Thursdays at 6 a.m. And it is brought to you by Prop Swap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Sell your bets and make a profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the Prop Swap app today. Well, if you were listening to Football at 4 on Thursday, Adam Kaplan told you that the Eagles had interest in two quarterbacks. One of them has signed today, and that is Nick Mullens. He is the new number 3 quarterback, we would presume. I mean, I know Nick Sirianni likes competition, but I would imagine he is not competing for the backup or even the starting job here. Although, Geoff Mosher, Nick Mullens, 16 games of starting experience, so he is a guy you could do a lot worse in that quarterback room than adding Nick Mullens.
You could do a lot worse. I mean, they had that at one point in Jamie Newman, and I only say worse because he did not have any NFL experience. He didn't play last year from opting out. He had questionable mechanics. Here, a kid in Nick Mullens, what's most important, and this is what Adam was emphasizing on the podcast last week, is that not only does he have some starting experience, but his experience with Kyle Shanahan is in a traditional West Coast offense. Well, traditional by today's terms, not necessarily Bill Walshian, but that's what Nick Sirianni is looking to bring here to the Philadelphia Eagles, bring back a little bit of that old West Coast type offense that we saw, in the 2000s with Andy Reid. I'm sure a little bit more modified to today's world, but maybe not as spread as Doug Peterson's offense tended to be. And here's a guy who has experience in it. And I think, Mike, at 26 years old, he's still someone that you can say is both young and developmental. And that gives you an advantage when he's already played in the league 3 years and has 16 starts under his belt, 65% completion percentage. Of course, he's an interception thrower. He has 22 interceptions to 25 touchdowns, but that's why he's a number 3 quarterback and someone who can come in here and try to be developed into your future backup.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he's played 16 games as a starter, so he's obviously got that going for him. But I think it's also a little other hidden gem here, Geoff, is now – you have a lot of young receivers. They're not also working with a young, inexperienced quarterback. When they get their reps, they're getting it with a guy who has played. So when John Hightower and Quez Watkins get their reps, they're not getting passes from Jamie Newman. They're getting from a guy who has started in this league.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. You're right that third-team offense now in practice and scout team offense has a guy who has really good experience, can help these young receivers out and be a leader and has started games. Now, the question with Nick is that he's coming off an elbow surgery. I believe he's going to be ready by August. It was initially feared that it might be a Tommy John procedure. It was not. So they got over the scary part there. So kind of like with LaRaven Clark, we're going to have to see what this guy can do when training camp starts and how long it might take him to be at 100%. Oddly enough, I mean, I think it was the year they won the Super Bowl behind Nick Foles was the year Nick Foles came over and missed a lot of camp with it. I think it was an elbow issue, if I'm not mistaken. So interesting parallel there.
Right, there you go. A little, I feel like there's oddly enough, Geoff, there are so many parallels to this offseason, to the 2017 offseason. Like, there's just a lot of these, like, late, under-the-radar kind of veteran guys, and they keep bringing veteran players in, and you keep thinking, what's the message and the mindset in the front office that they keep adding veteran type of players? You know what I mean? It's like, do they think more of themselves than others do? I don't want to say me, because I think I've been one that feels like this team can actually win this division.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's so hard in June to really make predictions when you don't know about injuries and you don't know about talent development, both on the Eagles and other teams. But yes, they've put themselves in a position where they should be competitive. They're strong in the trenches. That's always helpful when you're trying to be competitive. So they've what I think they've done, Mike, is they've tried to eliminate as many real question marks as possible. It doesn't mean they don't have any. Of course, they have some, especially at cornerback and some other positions. But when you went into the offseason and after the Carson Wentz trade and you looked at the 53-man roster, people rightly said, this team stinks. There's just question marks all over the place. And now you still have question marks about health and certain players, but there are much fewer than there were, say, 2 or 3 months ago. So now you can at least expect them, if things go well and you get the right bounce of the football, to be competitive in every game they should play. I mean, yeah, they're going to play Kansas City and Tampa, and maybe things get out of hand in a game or two. But again, they should be competitive.
Well, it's funny because I went back through their schedule last year, and most of the games, save for maybe 2 or 3, were one-score games. I mean, in the end, as bad as they were last year, they were somewhat competitively in them, even though they were not aesthetically pleasing, which it was tough to watch them at times. But in the end, they were a lot of one-score games last year.
Well, that's the NFL for you. I mean, I think if you look at most teams, I think the Jets had a lot of games that they lost by a touchdown or less, like a one-possession type game, 8 points or less, one possession. And, they were god-awful. So that's why what do you see, about 5 teams every year that didn't make the playoffs the year before that make the playoffs this year, and vice versa, because of the parity of the league.
Right. Well, I saw somebody write the article about 6 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that can this year. 2 were in the NFC East. One, of course, was Dallas. The other one was New York, and I was a little surprised. 'Cause I guess I like what New York has done. I just don't like the quarterback, and isn't that a big factor?
Yeah, but if you like Jalen Hurts more than Daniel Jones, I say why? You're just giving him more of a benefit of the doubt?
I didn't suggest that I like one more than the other.
Okay.
I
got you.
Don't Daniel Jones to me is at the bottom of the bottom end of the, bottom 5 starters.
I'd love to go back and watch some of the games because, as an Eagles reporter who saw him twice, we probably saw some of the better of Daniel Jones. I mean, the athleticism was on display. I think he scored 2 rushing touchdowns against the Eagles, both on read option. It seemed as the year went on, he was getting better. There was that one game that stands out to me against Tampa where they almost won that game and they lost, where he threw a pass to Golden Tate on 4th down in the end zone, and it was a little late, right? And then somebody broke it up, and they lost. But they fought hard that game. They were a good defensive team. They weren't a spectacular offensive team, but they also didn't have a lot of offensive weaponry, I thought. And then they added Galladay in the offseason. I think they picked up a running back in the offseason, and then they drafted Kadarius Toney, right? So just like we talk about the Eagles, about surrounding younger players, ascending players with complementary players who should help them succeed, I agree with you that we should find out more about Daniel Jones. I also don't think he's going to be some kind of awesome elite Pro Bowl level quarterback, but that obviously he's given the opportunity this year to show whether he can make that jump or not.
I agree with that. Yeah, I just, to say that they're going to be a playoff team, I got to see more from the quarterback before I'm ready to jump on there. But I think they've done a good job elsewhere. I do want to ask, Richard Rodgers signed on Friday. He's back. And I guess the follow-up to that would be, is that the signing to replace Zach Ertz, or is that, hey, we are comfortable with Ertz and we like these 3 guys together?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are sending a lot of mixed messages here. You've heard how he, not really commit, saying that he has to get rid of Zach Ertz. But again, I'll say this until it happens, and if it doesn't happen, I'll just scratch my head. I don't understand why Zach Ertz would be on this roster going forward. They don't want to be a 2 tight end type team. If he is on the roster at that money, then you're going to have to play him, which means you don't get to see Dallas Goedert as much as you would want to see Dallas Goedert in a contract extension type of year going into free agency. And then you're not playing the type of offense that you expect to be playing the year after and the year after. And you've got $8.5 million committed to him when you're only going to play him. He's even if Zach Ertz is on the team, he's not playing every snap because you're splitting it with guys like Goddard and maybe now Richard Rodgers. So nothing about Zach Ertz being on this team in 2021 makes sense, and I will probably go to my grave thinking that it doesn't make sense. And I still, if you ask me right now, I don't think he'll be on the team in 2021. Well, we'll see what. Go ahead.
You just said something though that I kind of makes. If somebody says, "Well, he's certainly you're better with him on the team," but you just said they don't want to be a 2 tight end team anymore. I mean, that's something that Doug Peterson didn't have a big problem with. In fact, he featured a lot of 2 tight end setups. The Eagles, I would imagine, with the West Coast look, they don't want to play with 2 tight ends if they don't have to, which means it sounds like you might be better, but before you had Goddard and Ertz on the field a lot together, you would not have that on this offense.
Yeah, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey is a better wide receiver than Travis Fulgham, right? But what happened when Alshon Jeffrey got healthy, making all that money in a year where the Eagles would have loved to have been able to unload him before the year started? They felt compelled to play Alshon Jeffrey. And what do you have, like 13 catches in the 6 or 7 games that he played? I mean, it was almost like they were force-feeding it. And then no matter what Aaron Moorhead says, I still think it hurt Travis Fulgham, both maybe mentally or just even the idea that it's stunting his ability to go get out there, fight through adversity, and develop. And then I feel like you would have the same situation with Zach Ertz on the team where, yes, you're right. People could say you're better theoretically because he's a talented player. But when you look at the big picture, you're not helping your team move on, do this transformation that's intending to do, and build in a different way. It's like you're stuck in the past a little bit. And we've seen that not just with Alshon, but Jason Peters and other players. It's you've got to turn the page. And I'm a big Zach Ertz fan who thinks that Zach's actually still got gas left in the tank. But so I want this as much for him so he can go somewhere and be a prominent role in somebody's offense somewhere, as much as I do want it for the Eagles to just be able to turn the page.
Even if it means you're getting very low return on investment.
Yeah, because really what you're getting low return on your investment from a draft capital standpoint if you're trading him for a pick, but you're getting a high return in that you're getting $8.5 million off your books that you now have to be able to give guys extensions or pay Landon Dickerson his money, which I'm sure will get done regardless anyway, obviously. But the bottom line is cap flexibility is an important part of this. And I think the better you can have that, you can do things.
Yeah. I want to get your take on the last round of OTAs that are just now in the book here. I was reading a lot, and you guys talked about this on Inside the Birds about the linebackers. You got Eric Wilson, who it sounds like they think he's going to start, but is it a lock that Alex Singleton is the guy that plays next to him?
I don't think anything's a lock other than Eric Wilson is a starting linebacker, and he's a starting linebacker because he was a free agent. They brought him over from Minnesota. He knows the defense, and he does what Jonathan Gannon is going to want to do because he played in that Minnesota defense. But as far as, when you're a nickel team, you're 4-2-5. Traditionally we've seen here that your 2 nickel linebackers are kind of coverage guys, right? Or downhill stop the run type of guys, depending on what they want. But if we're going to see a Zimmer-like scheme, you're going to see a linebacker who's a pass rusher, like a guy who walks up onto the line sometimes and makes it look like more like a 5-1-5 type of scheme right there. So that's where the Ryan Kerrigans come in. That's where Jannard Avery's come in, who are not just linebackers, but they're pass rushing linebackers, kind of like what you'll see from Anthony Barr. He can cover, but he can also rush the passer. Or Jonathan Gannon could look at this whole group, Mike, and you've heard him say, look, I don't have a scheme. I have to adapt it to my personnel. He can look at this group and say, I've got a lot of different guys who do different things. I'm going to have to figure out I may have a nickel package here for when it's 3rd and 5 and I want, to rush the passer and a little bit of coverage, or it's 3rd and 1 and I'm facing a pass-happy team that still likes to throw on 3rd and 1 like a Doug Peterson would do or Andy Reid would do. So I've got 2 coverage linebackers out there. So maybe it's now, if it's Davion Taylor or Alex Singleton and along with Wilson or whatever. My point is, I think he's got a lot of different guys. None of them are great, but he can probably build different packages for different guys. Whereas in the past, we've kind of known who the linebackers were going to be in almost every single situation.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we don't know exactly what style of linebacker play, but I think we do narrow it down to you're mostly only going to see 2 linebackers on the field, which you saw a lot in Jim Schwartz's defense as well. But gone are the days where you've got Jeremiah Trotter in the middle and 2 outside linebackers. You've got 2 guys playing next to each other, and we just assume that Wilson is going to be one and that Singleton might be the S. But what about a guy like Jannard Avery? What about Davion Taylor, who they drafted last year? Those are different kind of linebackers.
And that's my point about having different formations. Like if you want to rush the passer with an extra, you've got your front 4 and you want to have an extra rusher, you want a 5-man rush, well, that's where Jannard Avery, who actually Adam Kaplan said this on our podcast a while back, had impressed himself. He'd done a nice job there. Most people thought, including us, when he moved to linebacker that was just one step away from being, off the team. But again, if you're looking for linebackers who can rush the passer, and then they went and brought in Ryan Kerrigan, and we know that they plan to play him in a kind of outside linebacker, pass rusher, DN type of role, then all of a sudden you've opened the door to looking at the position in a whole new way. Davion Taylor, I wonder how well he can fit a defense like this, because he's a guy who lacks kind of the instincts and has not played the traditional linebacker role, but he can run. He can run like a gazelle. So you almost thought last year's defense would have been better because it was mostly man defense, where you could say, all right, you're on the slot tight end and you just go run with that guy. This year, if you're dropping into a lot of zones and playing a lot of too deep, he's going to have that, like, how far do I drop back? Am I moving laterally? How's my spatial awareness? What's going on in front of me with crossing routes? There's a whole lot of mental sharpness to the game that he may not have because he's never really played that style of position before.
Right, and, he does have that third-round tag on him. You wonder how much cachet that gets him. At least does it buy him another year? Or, hey, new coaching staff, doesn't matter. That's another storyline, I guess.
Yeah, I hope that they don't look at it that way. I mean, honestly, as much as I've criticized some of the philosophy of last year's draft and, whether or not you should take a backup quarterback in the second round and things like that, to me, the third-round pick on Davion, just based on the feedback I got around the league, was probably the most egregious pick that they made in the last two drafts, perhaps, just matching the value to the player to the round. There's nothing against Davion. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
But there are so many teams that Adam and I spoke to about this kid who would say, like, I think that the highest we heard a team had him is at fifth, maybe late four, but fifth. I had some guys tell me sixth, seventh, couple of teams told me rookie free agent. I mean, he was a guy who just had such little experience. It was almost all athleticism, and you're looking for the actual football in there, and it wasn't there yet.
Which, by the way, going back to what we talked about, how this team keeps adding veteran players and the message, Richard Rodgers is another one of those guys, by the way, that is, hey, we brought in a veteran player. Like, we could give time to Eric Stoll or Hakeem Butler's a project. Let's just play one of those guys, see what we get. No, they've gone with the guy that is 29 years old and has been with the team,
right.
Obviously different coach. So that,
by the way, you're like me. I called him Jake Stoll when his name is Jack Stoll. You gave him Eric Stoll, so we're all over the map.
Did I say Eric?
Stoll. Yeah, you said Eric Stoll. It was kind of funny.
Not the guy who played was Mask. Wasn't that Eric Stoltz?
Oh, is that his name? I forget.
Eric
Eric
Stoltz.
Something like that.
Yeah,
you're taking us back a long time, my friend.
Yeah, that was Cher and Mask was the movie with Rocky Dennis.
Right. But by the way, that's another reason why I don't think Zach Ertz will be on the team, because if Dallas Goedert were to get hurt, and Zach Ertz is not on the team, who are you going to trust as your number one tight end? Stoll, a rookie free agent, Jason Kroom, Tyree Jackson? Like, there was no guy that made sense as your top tight end if Dallas Goedert's going to get hurt. Now it does, because Richard Rodgers can catch and block and has experience.
You could make an argument that at points last year, he was the most reliable guy they had.
Oh, my God, against the Giants, I mean, he was the only guy, right? Boston's got caught the game-winning touchdown. I know that, but Richard Rodgers pretty much caught every other pass in the game.
Yeah, no, and look, there was a year in Green Bay he had 8 touchdowns. I mean, that was about I think 2015 or 16. But he has been a reliable receiver in this league, and that's interesting. So, all right, Nick Mullens is here. He'll be the number 3 quarterback, we presume, which gives them a guy who has started 16 games. They have a Super Bowl MVP on the roster at backup quarterback. So that quarterback room has some interesting names in there. And, of course, we're getting closer. That week went by very quickly last week, so we're only down to, 6 weeks before training camp.
Yeah, I need to enjoy these 6 weeks too, man.
I know, but, it's funny because I was just saying, I had lunch with my father on Friday, and he said, normally in the summertime, we start to think about taking a little time off, recharge the battery to football season. I said, look, if the Sixers make a run to the finals, I mean, where am I going? I can't take a day off with the Sixers in the finals. This is too big. But I said, if they get to the finals, Game 7, the furthest this season can go is July 22nd.
Oh, my God, that is amazing.
And that takes you right to training camp.
How about that?
Right.
And if the Phillies start to get hot, Mike, you're going to feel weird about taking some. No, I'm just kidding. They are getting hot, but I don't think you'll be upset about taking a few July days off.
I'll ask you then, what do you think about the Phillies series against San Francisco being exclusively on Peacock?
I just saw that an hour ago, and the first question I had was, why?
They're trying, they want to try to they have put everything.
So this is like how it's been on Facebook or Hulu or Amazon. They're just trying something different?
Well, all these streaming services, they're all trying because people are cutting the cord. So they're saying if you're going to cut the cord, then buy our streaming service.
Right. Well, and now I guess my next mission is to find out if I have Peacock.
Do you have Xfinity?
I subscribe to it. Yes, I have Xfinity.
So if you have Xfinity, apparently it's like free with Xfinity.
Yeah, okay.
So it's an app on your X1 box. You go to the app section on your box, and it'll be there.
I can do that.
Yep, it'll be there.
My favorite criticism of MLB is when people say, when the games are on Facebook, or I'm sorry, when they're on YouTube, they say, I can't believe they're putting stuff on YouTube. How is anybody supposed to find it? I don't think people realize that children right now don't watch TV. They watch YouTube.
I said, well, baseball, I don't want to say that they don't care about the older audience, but they're trying to attract younger audiences. The younger audience isn't,
by the way.
Right. The younger audience isn't watching cable.
No, I mean, I'm sorry if you're older and it's harder for you, but honestly, I credit baseball for finally being a little progressive and trying to get at the youth. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I said on Saturday, I called a high school baseball game, which was on YouTube. We had over 5,000 people watch the game, and they found it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, and people are like, that is an avenue where people now almost expect, hey, there's a live game on here somewhere. So YouTube is an easy platform because it's free. You can just go to youtube.com. Having the streaming service is a little different because you have to download them and then sign up for them. So,
yeah, but you know what? The kids will figure that out when they're old enough.
They will, yes. But, Dad, who's 65 years old, who wants to watch the Phillies play, now he's got to sign up for Peacock.
Get off my lawn.
All right,
Get
Geoff
off my
Mosher,
machine.
The new Inside the Birds podcast is chock full with information on the return of Richard Rodriguez, Eric Wilson, the linebacker position, and so much more. And don't forget, a new one comes out on Thursday at 6 a.m., and that is when Adam Kaplan will be back. Andrew's here tomorrow. Jeff's back on Wednesday. And don't forget to check out all of the Inside the Birds platform. All right, Geoff Mosher. Take care, man.
All right, Michael Gill. Have a great one.
He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.